Come build your house in Gaza. Last January 2024, that was the message you could hear at the Victory of Israel conference, a conference organized by the settler colonial group Nachala and attended by nearly a third of Netanyahu's cabinet and 15 members of the Knesset. Come build your house in Gaza was the message at the top of a map like this. A map of the Strip split into 15 or so renamed neighborhoods. At this Victory of Israel conference, attendees were given little wooden houses, like these, and encouraged to put their names on them, then place them on this map in the neighborhoods they'd like to settle in one day. The map calls this plan the New Gaza. Howdy friends, JT from the future here. I just wanted to take a quick second to do a shameless plug for Means TV, both because it's awesome and because being a dirty communist on YouTube is looking like more and more of a losing proposition. If you're not familiar with Means, it's a worker-owned cooperative and explicitly anti-capitalist streaming service. You can find everything from my videos to original series like Means Morning News to feature-length documentaries like Abby Martin's Gaza Fights for Freedom, with more amazing content being added every day. I've been working behind the scenes to help turn Means into a place that's both worthwhile for viewers as well as offering financial security for socialist creators in an increasingly reactionary political landscape. Every creator on the platform has a unique link that when anyone signs up using that link, that creator directly benefits from the subscription. I have mine in the description below, but if you really appreciate another creator's work, make sure to use their link instead. All of us at Means are trying really hard to build an alternative media ecosystem that is ideologically dedicated to sharing left-wing perspectives. With Means TV, we're able to say things the way they are. No pulling punches, no beating around the bush to trick the all-seeing eye of the algorithm. Means gives us the freedom to make the content we really want to make and say the things we really want to say. There's even a community forum where creators can engage with each other and fans right on the platform. As a little thank you for watching our channel, if you sign up with our link, or another creator's if you prefer, you can get your first month 20% off. Or for an even better deal, you can opt for the annual plan and get the whole year 20% off. A full year of Means TV will run you less than $90, which is like the cost of a single DoorDash meal these days. Every person who signs up using a creator's link is directly contributing to the financial stability of that channel and the entire cooperative media project. None of this would be possible without the generosity of viewers like you. Means TV is entirely grassroots funded, and it always will be. So if you'd like to help support our work, consider signing up for Means TV using the link below. It really does help the team here at Second Thought and dozens of principled socialist creators across the platform. Thanks for your support. Alright, back to the video. Fantasies of what Gaza might look like in the future, like this one, are on a lot of minds. Israel's US-backed onslaught has destroyed or damaged 92% of all homes in Gaza and most major infrastructure, and what happens next is a question that seemingly a lot of people who aren't Palestinian have answers to. Last year, for example, Netanyahu unveiled Gaza 2035. A plan to turn Gaza over to Bahrain, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Morocco, and let them run the show until Gaza looks like a bad AI render. Or, just recently, the Arab League also proposed its own plan with its own projects for the area, complete with a new airport, 2 seaports, and an industrial zone. But above all others, one person in particular has had a lot to say.
I'm committed to buying and owning Gaza.
Build beautiful communities for the 1.9 million people. We'll build beautiful communities, safe communities. Could be 5, 6, could be 2. Think of it as a real estate development for the future.
The Riviera of the Middle East.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area.
For the past few months, we've seen Trump broadcast his plan for Gaza, a plan to turn the area into what he's calling a Riviera. According to Trump, this project will usher in economic growth, safe housing, and even jobs for Palestinians in the Strip, transforming Gaza from its current state into an economic hub and tourist destination on the Mediterranean coast. It's all deeply disturbing for relatively obvious reasons, but one in particular.
These plans do all seem to presuppose some kind of ethnic cleansing. They seem to acknowledge and to be based on the sort of the current genocidal practices of Israel and their backers in the US.
This is Kareem Rabia, Associate Professor of Anthropology at University of Illinois at Chicago, and the author of Palestine is Throwing a Party and the Whole World is Invited. Like Kareem just said, Trump's concept of a plan for Gaza starts with the emptying out of the Strip, or in more accurate terms, ethnic cleansing. Something that the Trump admin isn't even trying to hide.
You're talking about probably 1.5 million people, and we just clean out that whole thing.
And to understand how we got here, with naked statements of ethnic cleansing barely breaking into the news cycle, we need to look a little farther back, with Trump's deal of the century.
Deal of the century.
Deal of the century.
Deal of the century.
My vision for peace, prosperity, and a brighter future for the Israelis and Palestinians.
So that plan is announced, if I'm not mistaken, in 2020 with the Peace to Prosperity initiative led by Jared Kushner being about a year in advance of that. And in some sense, it is taking the results, the very negative, obviously, for Palestinians, results of the stalled and degenerating effects of the so-called Oslo process, and try to give them a spin very much in keeping with kind of real estate development mentality that is Kushner's style, so to speak, right? So the notion there was really to crystallize, consolidate, I think, the depoliticization, the kind of politicide of Palestine, and to incorporate this termination of any possibility for Palestinian resistance or anything like substantive self-determination or sovereignty in the broader context.
This is Alberto Toscano. He's the author of Late Fascism, and according to him and to Kareem, plans like the deal of the century, this plan to sort of solve the Israel-Palestine debate with economic incentives targeting Palestinian middle-class aspirations and U.S. businessmen, set the stage for where we are today.
So I did research in the West Bank on real estate development and privatization. The main sort of period of my research was 2009, 2010, although I was sort of tracking it and traveling all the time from like 2007 to 2018 or 19 or so. And so when I started doing this research, this large real estate development project called the Rawabi started to come online. It kind of pierced the public imaginary when I was there. They started putting up signs advertising it, billboards advertising it, things like that. And what it is a large mega development project funded by now probably about $1 billion, mostly coming from Qatar, to be the home to supposedly 40,000 middle-class Palestinians. They say, this is a Palestinian project. It uses Palestinian vernacular architecture somewhat. It's green. It's of the environment. It's about sort of our place and our ties to the homeland and things like this.
The project Kareem is describing is one in a long line of development plans that have been proposed for Palestine. Plans that all came from a similar place. A place where a few economic incentives would be given to Palestinians in exchange for accepting their status as an exiled population who would never get the right to return. And if they didn't like it, the backup was always the threat of total elimination.
And I suppose we see that also playing out even in the kind of plans then presented on the back of Peace of Prosperity, or so-called deal of the century, by Netanyahu himself, envisaging this logistical and economic integration of the, Gaza Strip into an economic region in which Israel would be integrated with Saudi Arabia and Egypt, and you would have this kind of system of, expert processing zones and so on and so forth. Again, entirely predicated, as was evident in Netanyahu's performance back then at the United Nations, with the, elimination of any sign of Palestine from the map, right? This was then presented by Kushner, as much of this Oslo process has been presented as well in some regards as benefiting, so-called Palestinian civil society, allowing opportunities for for economic and financial improvement and so on and so forth. So in some sense, presented as a trade-off, right, between the full abdication of any attempt to gain any substantive forms of sovereignty, and in exchange some horizon, however fatuous or receding, of economic prosperity, as the argument, as the title of the project went.
But when we talked to these two authors, something was clear about where we are today. If the old deal for Palestinians was give up on your homeland in exchange for maybe 10% of you living something like a middle-class life, the new deal is something else entirely.
But I think we're really in a different moment now. I think that the contrast now, in answer to your question, is that we still have something like that, but the sort of like human development aspects of it, the aspirational aspects of it are just gone in the Gaza case. Trump doesn't say we're going to buy Gaza and redevelop it. He says we're going to own it. The capitalist logics that are emanating from Israel and from the US no longer sort of have the kind of liberal developmental vision that they did at one point. There is no assumption that this is for Palestinians at all, right? It is premised completely on ethnic cleansing.
Trump's plan is clear. Empty Gaza and fill it with luxury condos that won't be for Palestinians. And it's not complicated to see how we got here. The last 2 years of Democrats backing a genocide uncritically, funneling billions of dollars of weapons to Israel, and constantly refusing to sanction Israel's atrocities have completely dehumanized Palestinians, to the point that the very idea of innocent Palestinians has been denied by senior political figures. In this genocide, both sides of the aisle abandoned the people of Gaza, and in the process turned them into this utterly disposable population that countries like the US and Israel can now just apparently command to abandon their lands at any time with little to no pushback. Lands, by the way, that are incredibly important, especially because of Trump's real estate background.
The very terms in which it was being talked about, was in terms of, we here have not a territory or a country, but a plot. Kind of like a real estate, a space already imagined, right, in a real estate optic, which has been rendered unto waste. And of course, Trump treated this as just like a natural occurrence, right? It's kind of like the mentality of somebody coming in after the proverbial hurricane or natural disaster rather than in terms of a genocidal war funded by the US. So the idea is that you have a project of property development. Indeed, this is something that Trump himself did, right? When he was a property developer in Manhattan in particular, right? He basically wanted to redevelop this building and just stopped all of the electricity, the water from working, turned it into, an infernal, indeed unlivable place in order to get the people to leave, not having to pay them off the amount of money that he needed to pay them off in order to redevelop, right? So that's a kind of, the kind of renoviction logic. And the way that it was spoken about was in terms of, nobody would want to live there. We will, clean it up and redevelop it. But in the meantime, the population will be somewhere else, and this will be redeveloped in Trump's terms, right?
In Gaza, Trump is recycling something he's done for 40 years. And this approach, it turns out, is incredibly compatible with a long-term project that's enraptured the Israeli right wing for decades at this point.
I think there's probably a struggle within the state of Israel now that the sort of like genocidal and fascist bloc is in the center of the government. I think that they're probably, this is a moment for them where they can realize a lot of the things that they have wanted to realize for decades, if not longer, the complete takeover of Palestine and the removal of Palestinians from more and more parts of it.
The logic that Trump is using to justify these plans that are so attractive to those on the Israeli right, it's actually a very old idea, older even than Trump's tenant harassment in the 80s. The idea I'm talking about is that land belongs to whoever will make the most profit from it. That's an idea that comes from John Locke, a major political philosopher of the 17th century, and in many ways the moral architect of the colonization of America and genocide of the Native Americans. See, whoever has the most power can't just go around doing whatever they want. They need a moral theory to point to when they do bad things and explain it away like it's not a bad thing. And for capitalism, the ultimate moral virtue has always been profit. According to Locke, then, if the Native Americans weren't making the land, quote, useful and productive, if they weren't turning it for a profit, then they deserved to be removed, killed with impunity, and for their existence to quite literally be erased from the map. That argument hasn't gone away. Palestine is being treated by Trump, Netanyahu, and the Arab League not as the home of several million people with a history, a culture, and a place of personal attachment, but as just another lot to make money.
So I was at the second Palestine Investors Conference, and it was just after the Mavi Marmara sort of attempted to break the blockade of Gaza. And there were sort of discussions about should they cancel the conference and what have you. And ultimately, like, they just had the flags at half mast, and then it sort of proceeded. And I remember, like, on this point of the sort of the developers and the capitalists, like, believing in their vision, I remember being at one of the panels, and there was a guy who was saying, we are business people, we're Palestinians, we should do this as part of our national duty. As part of our national duty as Palestinians, we should come back, we should invest in Palestine, we should bring capital back. And he said, make no mistake, there are returns to be made here. Obviously, that was, interesting and strange language to me as a Palestinian, because that's not usually how we talk about return. We talk about the return from exile. But I like that sort of said to me that, these people have a vision and many of them believe in it. It's just not my vision. And it's just not one that I think is plausibly the basis for return or self-determination or sovereignty.
What we're seeing in Gaza is complete destruction and dispossession in the service of profit and territorial gain. And it's a mirror image of what is taking shape here. Here, like there, the number one goal of the Trump government is making capitalists more money. In their eyes, everyone else is disposable. Every other government function is worthless. Everything else is unnecessary. Their only framework for deciding good from bad is their personal monetary gain. And that means personhood, democracy, rights to free speech and personal safety. They'll give all of those up in exchange for number go up. The plans in Gaza are vague. What will actually happen to Palestinians? We have no idea. But what's already happened is horrifyingly clear. Land grabs are back, and people don't matter. Only the wallets of the rich and powerful do.